Hey, what's up YouTube? It's your boy KJ here. Let's talk about sniper support because a lot of guys are really loving to snipe lately, and I do too, and trying to find just the right gun to run with your sniper is actually a little harder than what I thought it was going to be. I tried a whole bunch one night. I just played for a really long time on stream, and I tried out as many different ARs and SMGs as I could, got a bunch of footage, and I tried to come up with a way to rank them. So I'm going to take you through it all right now and see if we can figure out what the best sniper support gun is, just looking at some objective stats. So let's get through it right now.
Yeah, they're up on the roof of
Yep. Got him.
Oh, he sniped me in my face.
Guys like, he sniped me in my face. That was such a good shot. Anybody see that? Alright, so my plan is to go through ranking them, and if you've watched any of my ranked videos before, I do something very similar to this. And what I'm doing here is I'm getting all the stats for all the different guns, and I have them over here. I look at the total damage you can put out for each area per mag, and then I have a ranking system for all of the guns where I'm going to look at sort of overall feel. So show you some footage, and this is sort of subjective based on me, and then we'll look at movement speed, reload speed, time to kill close and far, and then just how much damage per mag, and we'll see if we can come up with a ranking. And then I'll see if the ranking sort of fits how I felt when I was playing with them. So let's get right into the very first thing, which is going to be the overall feel. This will be the longest section to look at because it's going to be all kinds of footage. So let's start with the AK47. So I think the AK47 is probably the one gun that surprised me the most. When I played with it originally, it felt like a big, heavy, hard-hitting, slow-moving, tons of recoil gun. But when you build it sort of like an SMG without a barrel, it actually is pretty good. Even despite that range, I didn't find the recoil was unmanageable. I had no problem getting those range down. And with how much firepower this thing has, much damage it puts out, and the mag, you can get two guys down and thirsted pretty easily. So even in scenarios where, I would probably normally use an SMG for that movement speed, the AK-47 worked pretty good. It could bust in a building, and it has, sort of AR type sprint to fire, so it's a little slower than an SMG, but I never found it hampered my gameplay at all. Here's my favorite guys in helicopters. This guy was just trying to escape, so I'm not trying to squish me, but whatever, I'm going to get him down anyway. And, get to the end of the game here, and despite the distance, all that firepower, no problem getting it down. So definitely like the AK. So on stream, Horror Gaming was saying, hey, try out the EM2 as a close-range gun. So I tried it out. It actually even wasn't on my list, but it definitely worked pretty well. It's the new AR this season, and, it's got a bit of a different build than what I used on some of my other guns, but I found the mobility was good, the close-range fighting was good, despite it being a really slow-firing gun. I think it's one of the slowest firing, but it definitely hits hard. So like here, when I got that guy down, even so, it's got decent precision when you slow down your firing speed, and it worked pretty well. And when coupled with a sniper like this, it actually made a pretty decent pairing. And I think I had one of my best games using this gun, despite the fact that, it's sort of a, hard-hitting, lots of recoil gun. In this setup, I actually had no problem getting lots of downs and being able to move quickly and use it. And, these poor guys here, are at the very end of the game, and, I had height on them, so there wasn't a lot of chance that they were going to win this engagement, and, I won it pretty easily. But, using this gun, it definitely made the games easy to play and was a pretty good sniper support gun. I also really liked it. Now, the XM4 has been around since the beginning of Cold War, and it's one of the guns that actually was really crappy when it first came out because all the barrels and everything were broken. But they've recently fixed it. They fixed the recoil on it, and as a sniper support gun, this thing actually works really good. And it has the benefit of as much neck damage as it does the head damage. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's the only gun that has that. So as a close-range sniper support, it definitely works good for that. And watch, this guy comes jumping out right here. Bam, bam, bam. Got that down. And then, I pulled it out and sniped this guy right here in the face. So as a combination, these two guns, it was really solid. I actually really liked this as a combo. And I think the XM4 has a pretty distinct advantage with that head and neck shot being exactly the same, because it gives you just this massive area for neck shots. So, I think I could probably get faster TTKs with this because of that than maybe what the graphs show. So we'll look at that in a little bit, but that's definitely a factor. And long-range shots like that, well, the XM4 is a very smooth shooter. So from that respect, it's got high RPM, a very smooth shooting gun, and it really made for probably the easiest AR to use in terms of being a sniper support weapon. And I really like the microflex LED on it, so it was really good. So the Groza is the one AR that I didn't use a scope on or any kind of sight. It's got a really deep well, which you'll see right here, that actually makes using it with iron sights really easy because you have really good visibility. It's not one of those ones that's really high and it really blocks your view. This one here, you can see almost the entire body for the guy you're shooting at. So the iron sights on this works pretty well, and that actually gives you another attachment to use. So I actually built this one a little different than how I built the other ones. So it was definitely strong. I felt like it had more movement because that's what it is. It's supposed to be a high mobility AR. So I'm definitely using it for that. But it also hits pretty hard. So I feel like this is probably the one AR that you're using it the way it's intended, right? Some of the other ARs are meant to be, longer distance, not meant to be sniper support, even though they work well that way. That's what the Groza was really meant for, and the QBZ as well. They're high mobility, close range guns. So definitely should be mentioned is the Bullfrog. I think sniper support isn't just ARs. I think there's a lot of really good SMGs. And the Bullfrog is one of the best because it's got really good range. You can get a huge mag, 85 rounds on it, which would give it just ridiculous, amount of damage per magazine. And I did a whole video on why the Bullfrog with the 85 mag is really good. If you're trying to get multiple downs and you find yourself getting killed, reloading and stuff, I'll link it right here. You should definitely check it out because it solves a ton of problems. Like right here, watch. This guy here still got lots of bullets. His buddy comes busting in the door right here, 24 rounds, even after, shooting that guy and thirsting him, shot him and thirsted him. So that's the thing about the Bullfrog. He's got lots of bullets and it's really easy to use and has a really good time to kill. So if you're using the Bullfrog now, and it's a very popular SMG, lots of guys are using it, you can just add your Swiss or your Car 98 and use it with your Bullfrog if that's a setup you like, and it really works well. I actually had a good time using that, and I didn't feel like I was hampered too much in my gameplay. I do like an AR because I think you get a bit more range out of them, but you definitely have higher movement speed with the Bullfrog, and it really feels like an AR with when you're using it. So it certainly has that advantage, and I had no problem, getting the full team wipe on these guys when we were using it. And I think it's fair to mention the Milano 821. Now, this is older footage from before they nerfed it, and they nerfed the damage and the range and a couple things on it. But when I was using it here with the Axial Arms 3X as an AR build, it was actually pretty successful. Now, I don't think it's all that good anymore because they've sort of nerfed it. I think I would probably run the Bullfrog instead of this, but because it was such a really good gun, I think a lot of people are still using it as an AR support. I wanted to include it, maybe to give you some other options if you're still using the Milano and you don't know what else to use. I wanted to include it so you could see how it compares to some of the other options I'm giving you right now. So definitely worth, trying, but I think some of the other guns are a little bit better now than what the Milano is. It used to be the best. I don't think it is anymore. And I also covered this in an earlier video, but I've got sort of a bizarre Grau setup that I really liked using it. It definitely has some recoil and takes a little bit of getting used to. Some guys noted that on the video that, they had a little bit of challenge with it. To be honest, I did too, but once I got used to it, I sort of got that old Grau feeling back from when I used it, and it's got good mobility and pretty good firepower, and it's very familiar. So, in this build, I actually got pretty comfortable with it and was able to use it pretty well and was getting, winning gunfights with it, even against guys with SMGs. So it definitely is worth noting, and I'm going to include it in here. I would say it's sort of a hybrid between an AR and an SMG, and I used it with the iron sights. So it depends on how you like to build your guns, whether you like iron sights or whether you like the Microflex LED. You certainly have some different options here, and the Grau is definitely a good one, but it does take some learning curve. You're not going to use it right off the bat and be awesome with it. It's going to take a little bit of time to get good and use it and feel comfortable with it. It did for me. It took probably 5 or 10 games, and then I was a bit more comfortable with it. All right, so for overall feel, we need to rank these guns. And I honestly think for overall feel, I liked the AK47 the best. It just had a really good feel for me that I really liked. Closely followed by, I think, the XM4 and then the Groza I really liked as well. It honestly felt really good. Now, the Bullfrog is still one of my faves, and I'm going to give the Grau a tie with it. And the EM2... it was okay, but I don't think it was my favorite, and I don't think the Milano is really a contender anymore, so I'm going to give it 5. So for movement speed, there's a variance here because some of these are ARs and some of them are SMGs, but I grabbed these stats off of fully loaded out guns from True Game Data, and I'm just going to rank them based on how high the movement speed. So the Milano definitely is a high movement speed gun, so it's going to come in first, and I'll rank the rest of them. All right, so Milano first, Bullfrog in second. The Grau and the Groza, I'm going to put them together in third place with 8 points because the Grau and the Groza are really close to 4.8, and then the rest are sort of tied in 7th because they're all pretty close. Now, reload speed, well, the reload speed on all of these guns is almost exactly the same in the low 2 seconds, so, this is sort of a wasted category. It was better on the ARs, doesn't really apply here, so I'm just going to give them all 10 across the board. Sort of a pointless category. But what's not pointless is time to kill at close and at range. So let's look at some graphs. All right, so check this out. You can see the clear standout on the time to kill is the AK47. It's really good close and not the best, but pretty strong on far. But we want to look at the close range. So you can definitely see the AK and then the Groza and the Bullfrog, actually, surprisingly. But the Groza has more range. That's one thing about ARs. They definitely have a much farther range before you get that second drop off. And then the Grau, which is actually pretty good, but then gets really bad at range. And then sort of the XM4 is pretty darn good. And then you're getting into the EM2, which isn't good close, but definitely good longer distance. And then, the Milano, which was nerfed and it's just pretty well not the best anywhere. So let's go ahead and rank those. All right, so AK47 comes in first with the Groza close with 9 points, and then the Bullfrog at 8, surprisingly, although it does have a drop off. I gave the XM4 and the Grau both 7s, and then the M2 6, and the Milano finally 5, because it's just the furthest out. Now let's look at range. So at range, definitely the EM2. It almost looks like it doesn't have a drop off. So, it gets a pretty good time to kill at range if you can manage the recoil on it. The AK47 is very close and I think has an easier to manage recoil pattern. And then there's the Groza, the Bullfrog, the XM4, the Milano, and finally the Grau 556. So let's go ahead and rank these. So I gave the EM2 10, which really kicked it up in terms of its ranking, the AK47 9, then the Groza, then the Bullfrog, XM4, Milano, and the Grau. So let's look at damage per mag. And this is essentially how much damage can you do to each location based on the size of the magazine that you're going to use. And, the good thing about the XM4, which I was talking about before, is it has exactly the same head and neck damage because the damage itself doesn't have a drop off on neck, where the rest of them all have a neck damage drop off. So you definitely get that advantage. But with only 50 round, it's definitely not first. Now the EM2, because it has really high damage, head, neck, and body, it really has the most overall that it can do. But again, I think it's got the highest recoil out of all the guns. So, it certainly is going to have that problem. But the AK, which felt way easier to use, comes in a very close second place. So let's go ahead and score these based on the damage per mag and see what our final rating comes in at. All right, so where did all the guns land? Well, the AK-47 definitely came out in first place, way out ahead with 55 points. And in second place, the EM2 and the Groza, both tied, which I'm a little surprised about. And then a close third, or fourth, I guess, would be the XM4, closely followed by the Bullfrog. And then the Grau, which took a little bit of using and sort of gets outshined by some of these other guns. And sixth, the Milano, which nobody uses, in seventh. But really, what's my favorite? What's King James' favorite that he really enjoyed? Well, let me give them my own ranking. All right, so what's my ranking? Well, I think the Cold War AK-47 was the best. It was the one I enjoyed using the most. I think I got the most kills with it, and it was the most comfortable, so definitely the best. Groza and XM4 were also really good, very, very good, very close. So if you don't like the AK-47, I'd really recommend one of these. And if you want an SMG, the Bullfrog, of course, 85 round mag, that thing's a slayer. And I'll show you loadouts for all of these guns. And in fourth place, the EM2 and the Grau were both pretty good, but I think some of the other guns outshine them. And the Milano, I just don't think it has a place anymore, so it's definitely not the best sniper support anymore. So I have a couple different ways to build all of these guns, and let me show them to you. So for the AK-47, Grau suppressor, Tiger Team, Microflex, KGB skeletal stock, and the 45 round mag. But you can also swap out the barrel for the KGB stock, and I did that on the EM2, and it worked pretty good. And shout out to Horror Gaming for this. I used the suppressor instead of the agency, so you don't get the ADS penalty, the ultralight instead of the Raider stock, and then your Tiger Team Microflex LED and your 40 round mag. So that's also another way that you want to try on any of these guns, the ARs. This also works pretty well. Now for the Groza, I have a slightly different setup that I use for the Groza because I like the iron sights on it. So Grau suppressor, Tiger Team spotlight, KGB pad, but instead of the Microflex, I grabbed the Grau elastic wrap and the 45 round mag. Now you can definitely grab the ultralight barrel instead, or you could grab the bruiser grip if you want more mobility. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can build this. So try a couple of them out and let me know what you think. For the XM4, this build just seemed to be really solid. Agency, Tiger Team, Microflex, Raider, and the 45 round mag. And this was really solid. I actually really enjoyed using this gun just like this. Now for the Bullfrog, there's really two ways you can build this, but Grau suppressor, Task Force, Tiger Team, KGB skeletal stock, and you can run the bruiser grip for more mobility, or if you want that 85 round mag, which is really awesome, and I did a video on why it's so good, grab that and get rid of the bruiser grip and run it like this for that huge magazine. And last but not least, I wouldn't recommend this gun, but my Milano build was Agency Task Force. I used the Vision Tech 2X or the Axial 3X, Snag 55, and the Field Agent. So basically an AR build on the Milano, and it gave it tons at range. But now they've nerfed this thing, so I probably would stay away from the Milano at this point. The Bullfrog for an SMG or the PPSH with the same build is a much better idea. Anyways, guys, give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Was there anything I missed, or was there some other guns that you thought were really good? I didn't really touch on the PPSH, but it's also a really good SMG that you can use. And for snipers, I use the Swiss. I know a lot of guys like the car. I think the Swiss is better in my opinion, but you know, it's sort of up for debate on that as well. So anyway, if you got any suggestions or something that you think I missed, or a gun that's really working awesome for you as sniper support, put it in the comment section down below and let me know what it is that you're using, because I really like to try different stuff and I really love to snipe, so I'm always open to trying new things. And of course, I'm live on Twitch Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, sometimes Sundays, so if you want to check me out, you can drop in there and check me out. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. So if you don't see me in Warzone, if you don't see me in multiplayer, it's only a matter of time, baby. King James out.